And welcome back to the show, folks. Now, as I've said many times before on this radio show, even looking at all this information and all of the stuff that we've got coming to us, ultimately what we're facing here is a spiritual battle. That's why they do everything they do to us to keep us down. That's why there's so much negative stuff around. That's why they stage all of these wars, manufacture all of these wars. That's why they stage all of these shootings everywhere, folks. And most of these shootings are fake. Most of these shootings don't have any victims. I mean, I'm sure there's some that people die. I don't even bother analysing them anymore. I don't. I just look at the way it's been played. I don't even consider whether there were victims or whether there were shooters or whether it was staged or whether there were crisis actors. I'm just not interested in how they did it. It's the fact that the event happened and the fact of how it's going to be used, how it's going to be played, what is going to be the result of this event. And to be honest, there's plenty of other people out there now who are analysing these events and going through all the finer details. I don't need to do it. I just take it as a given that they're all staged. Whether there were victims or not, I don't know. Like I said, I don't even bother going into it anymore. It doesn't interest me. It's like so many people who spend so much time and effort, wasting so much time and effort arguing over the finer details of 9/11, whether it was thermite, whether it was directed energy weapons, who did it, whether it was this, whether it was that. It doesn't matter, folks. The fact is that the event happened and how the event was used. What is the result of the event? Look at the bigger picture. That's why I'm just not interested in arguing over the details of all of these things. Simply because when all is said and done, I mean, I can have an opinion, but ultimately I don't know because I wasn't there. These finer details don't even interest me. I think it's a rabbit hole. It's a red herring. You've got to look at the bigger picture and see how it's all being used. And what it's all about is suppressing the human experience. What it's all about is preventing people from really being able to be themselves, putting people in fear, putting society against each other. That's a great thing that happens with these shooting events as well. You get people arguing over whether there were victims or no victims. And these are people that are supposed to be dealing with the system, dealing with the government system, and yet they're arguing over details and distrusting people and distrusting each other over different people having different opinions of the details, none of which any of them actually know anyway. And that's why it's all done this way, folks, and it's all about divide and conquer. And I see a lot of this in the truth movement as well. I see people who make their whole channels designed on analysing what other people say so they can microanalyze each sentence and throw it back at them and create distrust. And we really need to put all of this stuff down and realise that we are in a state of clear and present danger, and the reality is that we've been lied to on all counts, so we can sit there and argue about the details till the cows come home. And it's not going to make any difference. We're still heading towards this same lockdown, this same police state, if we don't deal with this system, face the reality around us, unite with each other, respect each other, allow people to disagree, allow people to think differently, and turn and face the system. And the way you turn and face the system, folks, is simply by withdrawing support from it. Start building strong ties in your community and helping people around you. Start putting in community gardens and start asking why. Start asking questions. When government and politicians ask you to do things, ask them why. That would be a great start. You know, all of the information that I've brought you on recent shows when I've been delving into history, and I mean the stuff that I've brought you previous to that on 5G, the stuff that I brought you previously to that when I was talking about spirituality and consciousness for so many years. You know, when you combine all of this together, folks, I mean, what if we did combine all of this knowledge together and apply it to the reality that we live in? I mean, really, if we were to do that, we could change the world very, very quickly. You know, what if we were to question authority? What if we were to really discover the power that exists within ourselves? What if we were to see the futility and the stupidity of indulging in these parasitic social systems that we're now indulging ourselves in? And that's the thing. I mean, I think many people are seeing the stupidity of these systems. They're looking around them and saying, my God, what am I swimming in? But then they don't really know what to do about it. And it's really a very sad and pitiful state we find the human race in. Like I said, it's like people are in a trance and they wake up from their trance and they realize that they're living in this false reality. And it becomes very uncomfortable for them. A lot of people don't know what to do about it and they can't see the way out. And that's something that really does disturb me, even with bringing these radio shows to people. Sometimes I wonder whether it's a good idea to be waking people up to their surroundings because of the reaction it may have in them. It's like Neo in the Matrix when they say that there are certain people past a certain age, we don't wake these people up because they simply can't handle the truth. And sometimes I wonder about that. But again, with these radio shows, what I do is simply follow the thought processes that I'm having. You know, I'm not making claims and I'm not making statements. I'm often speculating. I'm giving you my opinion. I'm giving you my perspective on the information that I've had. And some of the information may seem quite strange and esoteric to people. It may seem like I'm going off on tangents that are irrelevant. I've had a lot of criticism over the last show for even talking about the mud flood, even considering the mud flood to be a possibility. And frankly, folks, all I'm doing is looking at physical evidence. I suggested that the mud flood may have happened around about 1840. I'm just simply looking at physical evidence. It may have been before that. It may have been around the 1600s. A lot of people think it may have been around then. But I'm just looking at it and thinking, well, this is a possibility. And if you can factor in the possibility of this happening, well, it does actually fit with other things. I mean, you can't just ignore it and say, oh, that's an impossibility, because if it was real, then it would be in history books, it would be in textbooks, it would be in the strata, it would be here. No, folks, you don't know that at all. You don't know whether it would have been in the history books at all, especially if you look at the information that I brought you last week on the foundling trains and the orphan trains, how most of society had children brought out to them. And we didn't have major communication. We didn't have the internet. We didn't even have newspapers in a lot of places back then. So how would anyone really know what was going on? People are just going to know what they're told. People are just going to know the history that they're given. And if people are brought to a strange country when they're a child and they grow up there, they're just going to believe whatever they're fed to explain how they got there to them. They're not really going to know what history is. So it isn't so far-fetched when you think about this, and the information about the foundling trains and the orphan trains is very, very compelling and very important information, and it is a huge piece of the puzzle. Another video that I found, another channel that I found, because another question that I asked last week was the slave trade. I was questioning the slave trade and the reality of the slave trade, about what really happened during the slave trade, and that led me to another channel, and information that was put together by a black man by the name of Dane Calloway, who is also questioning the slave trade. And he's done some remarkable videos on the history of the slave trade in the United States. And he's gone back down the food chain and gone back down the line, and he's realized that a lot of the so-called African Americans in the United States are not African at all. They're actually Native Americans, because the slave trade did not happen the way we were told that it happened. And gee, surprise, surprise, something isn't the way we're told. I mean, why would we expect any different, folks? Because nothing that they've told us so far actually seems to have happened the way they tell us it happened. So why would we expect that the slave trade went down the way they told us it went down either? It's really quite remarkable, some of the research that he's done, and it's very refreshing to see this coming from a black man in the United States. Great work that he's done. So I will put a link to his channel and a video that he did on the American slave trade in the link below if you're watching this on YouTube.